friends, and welcome to episode 13 of the Hungriest Knitter podcast. I'm Rachel, your host. You can find me on Ravelry, Instagram, and Twitter as Rachel Lindsay. And you can find the Hungriest Knitter podcast group on Ravelry. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're a new or returning viewer, I have taken a dramatic pause in podcasting. And it was very unexpected and very stressful. To make a long story short, I started a new job about a month ago. And with that, as I've been gone, I went through the process of finding and applying to and interviewing for the new job and leaving my former position. And it was kind of stressful and a little crazy. And I don't know that my head was screwed on quite right during that whole time. For those of you who don't know, I work in fundraising and primarily in higher education. And so I left my former university and am now at a different university, still in DC. And it's really exciting and wonderful and busy and stressful, and I have an increased title, so I have more responsibilities, and things have been bonkers, to say the least. But with that also, I think, if I'm going to be completely honest, the longer I was away from podcasting, I was scared to come back, which is crazy. But I was afraid of, that I had lost my mojo, and that I've lost my viewers, and maybe that I wasn't contributing anything of value to this community that I really love. Especially, I started to get really wrapped up in this idea that I need to be hosting giveaways and having buying new yarn and new things to share, and that's not the way I like to knit, and that's not what I think is inspiring for me. I love seeing new stuff on podcasts, and but for me, that's all very stressful. I'm someone who doesn't like to have a lot of stuff, and but to make a long story short, I started to get really anxious about coming back and what I wanted to say, and felt like I was losing sight of what my goals were when I started this podcast in the first place, which is just about a year ago. And what I really care about is knitting and working with intentionality and simplicity, and just really focusing on beautiful materials and things that make me happy. So I think you may see a change in the podcast. I don't know that I will be hosting many more knit-alongs or giveaways, which may not be super attractive for some people, and that I completely understand. That's a great thing about podcasts, but I'd rather just be able to have conversations with you and interact with you and talk about what you're knitting and what excites you, because that's what excites me about this community. Even though I've said all that, I do have some giveaway goodness for you. When we last chatted, when I last recorded, we were in the middle of the Falling for Shawls knit-along, and you all made some really incredible and gorgeous things. And the knit-along ended, and I have prizes. So, without further ado, the first prize was a skein of yarn of the Knitter's Choice, the Winner's Choice, both the colorway and the base, from Skein Yarn in Australia, which is generously provided by Kristen of Skein Yarns. So thank you, Kristen. I'm so appreciative of your support of the podcast. Also, she has a really lovely and incredible video podcast that if you aren't viewing, you should be. And her yarns are just killer. So, we are giving away one skein of yarn from Skein Yarns to one of the folks who completed their shawl during the time period. And our winner is Blue and White Cat. So congratulations. And she knitted a really lovely little garter leaves shawl that's just precious and beautiful. And I love the yarn that she used. So congratulations, Blue and White Cat. The second prize I'm giving away is a skein of yarn from my own stash, which is Neighborhood Fiber Company Studio Sock in the Rock Creek Park colorway, which is this really great, tonally variegated emerald and winter green. Now, my camera is not doing this yarn justice, but this yarn is so vibrant. It's a beautiful jewel tone. It's 100% superwash merino. It's a very generous 400-yard skein. And the winner of this skein of yarn is someone who participated in the chatter thread for the Falling for Shawls KAL, and that is C. Jimenez, which I probably butchered, but Charlene from the group, who knits shawls like a machine, I'd like to add. She cranks shawls out like crazy. And I believe she knitted, amongst other things, a lovely Whispering Pine shawl designed by Molly of a Homespun House. So congratulations, Charlene. I will be contacting you with this beauty for your mailing address. So congratulations. And the third item I'm giving away is a shawl pattern, a Ravelry download shawl pattern that's valued US $10 or less, and that I picked someone from the chatter thread. And the winner of that is Tokyo City Girl. So congratulations to all three of our fabulous winners. Of course, I used random number generator to pick everyone. And thank you so much for participating. You guys made such beautiful stuff. I was really blown away by your talent, your creativity, and your participation. So thank you so much for joining me in that knit-along. I can show you my one finished object since I've been gone, which is pathetic, but it is the shawl I was working on during the Falling for Shawls knit-along. Ta-da! I love it so much. And now I can't think of what it's called. Oh, brother. I have to look it up. This is a pattern from Fancy Tiger Craft, whose name escapes me, and I'm embarrassed that I can't think of the name of it now. It's a beautiful basket weave with a scalloped edge, as you see. And I knitted this in Bartlett Yarns Fisherman 2-ply. I really love this. It's very long, as you can see, and not super deep, which is great for me because I like to wear a shawl more often than not like a scarf with the point in the front. So with that in mind, it is a really lovely, simple, cozy shawl, and it's on a heavier gauge. This is pretty close to a worsted. So, you know, it's really nice to wear under my coats, and very, very warm because it's 100% wool. I am rambling like an idiot because I can't believe I can't remember the name of the pattern, and I'm looking it up on my phone right now because, come on. I really love the way this turned out. I think it blocked beautifully. I really was thrilled with the way the pattern was written. I think the increases in this are ingenious. It's a paid-for pattern, so I'm not really going to explain how any of it's done, but it's very clever, and it really beautifully integrates. The increases are really beautifully integrated into the basket weave. Come on. It's loading. This is the worst. Can you tell I'm rusty? Oh well. I should have written better notes. This is my fault. The Imposter Shawl, of course. And it's called the Imposter Shawl because the body looks woven, and then the edging looks crocheted, but it's all knitted. It's all knitted. Anyway, I really enjoyed knitting this. The body was a breeze to knit. I found the edging to be a little challenging, a little fiddly, and that's only because I was having issues with my gauge and my tension of the yarn. When I first started, I cast on the edging 2 or 3 times before I really liked the way it looked. I was finding that the back side of it was looking really lumpy and bumpy, and I knew it wouldn't block out. But then the 3rd time I knitted it, I really tightened up my gauge a great deal. And I would suggest for people to maybe consider going down a needle size when they do the edging in the future. Like if I knit another one of these, I would decrease my needle size when I do the edge. But I think it turned out fantastically, and it blocked out really beautifully. I used, I had just gotten the Knit Picks knit blockers, so I used those to block this, and it was like magic. It really opened up, and it flattened out this basket weave. It turned out fantastically, and I'm really happy with the way this looks. It kind of makes me want to knit a million more shawls. And I just love it. I really do. So that's my one FO since we last talked. Life. But we can talk about what's on my needles. And there are a few things. Most of them you've already seen, which is a bummer. But life. But you all knitted some really fabulous and incredible stuff for the knit-along, and I'm just so impressed with what everyone did. And man, I'm wearing my biggest, coziest sweater today. It's very chilly outside in DC. We have a little bit of freezing rain today. Whew. So I've stayed in my pajamas, and I have my coffee in my Tolkien mug. Check that out. Yeah, it's good stuff. So, we're doing all right. So I'll show you the 2 languishing whips that I'm still actively working on, but it's literally like a row here and a row there. And then I'll show you the new item I've cast on that I'm really digging right now. So first off, I am working on my Wintery Whispering Pines shawl, which I'm knitting in Rowan Felted Tweed. And I just, check out that glorious, it's this icy gray. It's so pretty. And I'm still in the body, and that's okay. I'm knitting it on my carbons, which I really enjoy working with. I think they're really fast and comfortable. And I really love the way this looks. I am pretty certain that I will gift this to my mom because she saw it on the needles and just said, "What's that? Can I have it?" Which she does a lot, but I think this will suit her and will go well with a lot of the things she wears. And she's actually the person who bought me this yarn ages ago, so it seemed appropriate to be able to give it back to her. And I still have more, so I could probably make another one. I was just sort of blindly knitting on this. I'm not even sure how far I am in on the body. I think I'm probably getting fairly close to being able to start the lace edge, but I'm not 100% sure. I need to check the pattern because I'm considering maybe making it a little bigger. My mom likes a nice big cozy shawl, so I might make it a little larger. But I've literally, it's like one row here, one row there, and that's all I've been doing on it. But I really do, like, now that I'm looking at it, and I love the little pearls. I really think with this gray, it just looks like snow. And it makes me so happy, and it's like the right time of year to be knitting it because it's January. So yeah, that's on my needles right now. I'm very happy with it. It is a little sheddy because the Rowan, the felted tweed, has a bit of alpaca in it, so it sheds a little bit everywhere. But I know once I wash it, it'll really, all of those loose bits will come off, and I know this is going to block beautifully because I love felted tweed. So I'm almost done the first ball, and I'm only going to need one more. Probably not even the whole thing. So fabulous. Things to revisit. The second item I'm working on has barely grown, I think, since we last chatted, which are my cozy, fabulous cranberry socks. And I'm knitting these in Wandering Wool, Ossable sock base, which is an 80-10-10 merino cashmere nylon, in the colorway Cranberry Bog. This might be my favorite sock yarn ever, and I've said this 100 times about 100 different colors and looks, but it's just like, it's luscious and squishy and amazing and perfect to knit in a rib. So I'm using the Pearl Soho sock pattern. This color is just not good. I apologize for my terrible lighting, as always. But it's this really lovely, tonally variegated cranberry colorway. It's just luscious in this rib. That's like the only word I can think of. It's so springy and soft, and I'm using my my Carbons DPNs again, and I think this is the Pearl Soho, I think it's just called the Favorite Sock pattern. It's their rib. It's just a simple top-down heel flappy sock pattern, which I enjoy, with a nice rib in the cuff and then along the top of the foot. Totally what I like. I've been really gravitating towards very simple looks right now because I think it really goes with my wardrobe, which is pretty basic and pretty neutral. So I just really thrilled with the way this is turning out. But I haven't been working on it very much, as you can tell, because it's basically, you won't remember because it's been 100 years since I podcasted, but it's basically the same size. It's maybe this one cuff is maybe an inch longer than the last time we talked. And this is as far as, there's no other sock. Like, this is it. So maybe I will get inspired soon. I think that by putting it on the podcast, maybe I'll catch up a little bit. So there's that. And then there's the thing I've been really working on with any gusto lately, which is the Pearl Soho Boyfriend Hat, which is supposed to be knit in 2 strands of light worsted to create a marled effect. But instead, I found this fantastic yarn in a Baltimore local yarn shop. And when I went in just to buy needles, and I found this yarn, and I was just like, oh, I need to buy this. So this is 2 ball. I'm using 2 skeins, 2 50-gram skeins of Sublime Luxurious Aran Tweed, which is a really fabulous blend. I'm realizing more and more that I really like a sturdy, lovely blend of wool, 40% wool, 40% cotton, and 20% llama. It's incredibly soft, but also sturdy at the same time. In this deep gray marl, it's like a black marl almost, with like white flecks throughout. It's a sort of single plied, heavy twist yarn. I wish I could give you a good view of it. That's better. And I really love the quality of this yarn. It feels very rustic and simple, and sturdy but soft at the same time. I'm really obsessing with this yarn, which is silly. And it's just this really fabulous 1x1 squishy rib. It's just mindless, delightful, sitting at the brunch table, chatting with friends, knitting. And it makes me really, really happy. I'm realizing, like I said earlier, more and more the things I'm attracted to are just simple, basic patterns. And the stitches just look sumptuous in this rib, and beautifully uniform, and that's sort of all I need right now to make me happy. And I am using my new bamboo Ciao Goose, which I also bought at that fantastic local yarn shop. These are US size 3, which is 3.25 millimeter, I guess. These are maybe the best bamboos I've ever worked on, and I am like kind of a fan of Addy bamboos, but this tip is just a little bit more pointy, so it just is a breeze to knit with, especially if your yarn is at all splitty, which I think this can be if you're knitting a little too tightly with it. But yeah, it's just fabulous. Oh gosh, I really, really love these needles. And they're warm and feel great in my hands. So I'm really enjoying this. This is sort of the primary pattern right now. I'd like to get this off my needles in a few days. I'm a little concerned that I'm knitting it too big, but I wanted it to be kind of like a looser, slouchy hat. I didn't want it to be like really tight on my head and then like a bulb on my head. So I'm knitting the medium size, which is like, I guess, casting on 160 stitches. The small one was 144. So it's going to be kind of generous on my head. I did take it off the needles at one point and put it on, and it does fit, but it's just not tight, So we'll see. I do like it thus far. But if it's not working the way I'd hoped, I can just pull it out. It's fine. I'm 1 ball in. This is about 5 inches right now. At 8 inches, I'll do the decreases. Cool. That makes me really happy. It's simple. In my wheelhouse. So that's everything that's really on my needles right now. I did want to share with you, I guess we can call this a knitting acquisition. It's not really knitting, but I thought it was I got it as a gift from my dear friend for Christmas, and I thought it was the perfect gift for knitters. So I wanted to share it with you, especially because it's really lovely in that it's all natural. And this is great for the hands of knitters. It's from the Savannah Bee Company. My dear friend went on vacation in Savannah and brought this back for me. It's beeswax hand and nail salve. There we go. Isn't that fantastic? It's a really heavy, I'll show you what it looks like. I'm already I've dove into it. I've used so much of it already. It's a really lovely, organic salve that can soothe your cuticles. So like my nails and cuticles have been super dry this winter, especially, you know, when you snag your knitting, the worst. And great for your knuckles and hands. My hands have been getting really dry because I walk to work, and in the morning sometimes I'm really warm, and so I won't wear gloves, and my hands have been getting a little chapped. So the only ingredients in this are sunflower oil, olive oil, beeswax, vitamin E, spearmint oil, lime oil, and lemon oil. That's it. It smells wonderful. It's this like citrus mint, but it's not strong. And it feels so great. I put it on my hands like 100 times a day now. It's just the most soothing, lovely thing. And she got it because she got herself some and really loves it. But I think it's such a cool gift for knitters. So if you need to get yourself a little something after the holiday, or if someone's birthday is coming up, a really nice, cozy, soft little product. I've been putting it in my knitting bags, my purse. I've been carrying it with me everywhere. And it just feels wonderful and soaks in really quickly. Ugh. For your dry knitting hands, perfect. So give that a try. That's sort of my only stash acquisition as of late. I mean, of course, the Sublime, which was a new purchase. But that said, I really love this from the Savannah Bee Company, so I wanted to share it with you. With that, I'd love to talk a little bit of what's been on my stovetop lately. I have been, as always, focusing on really good whole ingredients and really simple cooking. I got a really fantastic blender about 2 months ago, not even 2 months ago, that I've been having fun playing with and making smoothies and smoothie bowls and all those sorts of things. And I made hummus in it for New Year's Eve, and it turned out fabulously, so that was cool. So there have been a lot of like healthy smoothies coming out of the house lately with a little bit of fruit and a lot of greens and some flax and all that stuff for a good healthy start to the day. But my cooking has also been sort of very simple, cozy, warm, and you know how I love a soup. So I've been making a lot of soups. My new office, there aren't a lot of good places to eat near my new office for lunch, which is probably a good thing. Save some money and eat healthier, right? So I did make a really killer, I've been making a lot of soups that you know, I can put up a jar up and keep in the fridge and feed myself a week of lunches, right, with this big pot of soup. I made a really great white chicken chili that I like to do. I made really delicious French onion soup that one of my colleagues every day at lunch would just say, "Rachel, do you have more of that soup?" Because he could smell all the onions and the wine in the kitchen after I would heat it up. But a soup that I made that was really light and lovely that I loved was a Mexican quinoa soup. I had with some red quinoa, red onions, tomato, like canned tomato, what else was in it? Frozen corn. It was really easy. Lime. And I put chicken in it this time, but I think the next time I do it, I'll just I'll increase the amount of veggies that I put in and go without the meat. I've been eating a lot more vegetarian food, especially during the day lately, which has been good. Makes me feel energized. Yeah, this soup though, lots of good spices, cumin and coriander and cayenne, but you could of course play around with it. And I did I posted that recipe on my blog a couple weeks ago. It's a really good soup to make if you're feeling a little stuffy or a little sick. So I'll share that. I will share the link to that recipe because I was really thrilled with the way it came out. And you can sort of doctor it any way you want. I would totally, if you have avocado, add that. If you have a little shredded cheese, you could top it with that. It's kind of endlessly adaptable. I think the next time I make it, I want to put a can of green chilies in and just see how it turns out because I love green chilies and I think it would really add a little kick to the soup and a bit more tang. The thing that really makes the soup is adding lime at the end. You add lime juice to it and it just it's that one thing that like really adds the complexity of flavor to the soup, which I love. So that was fabulous. And then I also made last night for dinner the first homemade dinner my guy and I have had since we have been home for the holidays. We were both out of town for the holidays and then came back and had just been running in circles of like running errands and sort of hosting a little New Year's Eve party at his house. And all that stuff, running in circles, trying to get all that stuff together and ready. And he just said to me, "This is the first home-cooked meal I've had since I've been home," which is only a couple days, but still. So last night, I made the most delicious Dijon chicken with shallots and tomatoes, which is a recipe I found through a really lovely cooking blog called TV Dinner. And the author of that blog found it from the New York Times. And this recipe was amazing. And like a pretty budget-friendly recipe, because that's something that I'm very thoughtful of a lot of the time now. It has chicken thighs that are seared in a Dutch oven. You sear off your chicken thighs in a bit of oil or butter. I used coconut oil, which I think really added a great richness to the dish. Then you pull those out of the pot and you saute in the chicken fat and the oil a pile of peeled shallots that you keep whole, and they caramelize in all that fat. And then you add a couple cups of white wine to deglaze the pan. You stir in Dijon mustard and herbs. The recipe recommended fresh tarragon, but I didn't have any fresh tarragon on hand, and it's not in season here. So I used a bunch of dried herb de Provence, which is my favorite, and I knew would go really well with those flavors. A bunch of the dried herb de Provence, and some pepper and a little bit of salt, right? But not much. You didn't need to. You seasoned the chicken. Then you put the chicken back in the pot and lit it and let it simmer for about 30 minutes. It's a pretty hands-off dish. It's just kind of like putting the lid on and then taking the lid off, right? So I let it simmer for about half an hour. Then I added a pint of halved grape tomatoes to the pot. I actually put the lid back on and let those tomatoes cook in the sauce for about 10 minutes, just because they're not, it's winter, so they're not fresh tomatoes. And, sometimes the flavor isn't quite as good. But if I was making this in the summer or late fall in tomato time, I would just fold them in at the end and not worry about cooking them, because you'd have that really fresh, lovely flavor from them. But I let them cook in the sauce for about 10 minutes, then took off the lid and let the sauce reduce for about 15 minutes. Oh my gosh. My boyfriend was like, add this one to the recipe box, because it's a keeper. He loved it. He loved it. It's very rich. It's but like a very bright, lovely flavor. The chicken is super tender. It falls apart. It would be great served over like a creamy polenta. That would be great with it. We tried to be a little light, and I made a kale salad to go with it. But it's just really lovely, simple cooking. Oh, it was delicious. And like I said, a pretty budget friendly. Chicken thighs are very inexpensive, especially if you buy them bone in, skin on. So I trimmed off some of the fat from the skin, excess skin. But they're a really rich flavor, and it was an incredible dinner. So I will share the link to that recipe also in the show notes. I'd love to hear what you're cooking. I'd love to hear what you're knitting. Something I've been thinking about that I think would be fun, because I don't want to do a knit along anytime soon. I find that I'm most often on Instagram, and I love going to Instagram and seeing what you guys are knitting and get really inspired by all the stuff you're doing. So I'd love for you to start sharing projects that you love, that you're working on with me, by using the hashtag knitwiththk, the Hungriest Knitter. That's me. And I will start sharing some of what you're knitting on future episodes of the podcast that I think are really exciting and inspiring and beautiful. And because I love to see what you're making, and really fostering those relationships in our community, I think is fun and really meaningful to me. So I want to see what you're making. I'm going to start using that hashtag on all of my knitting posts on Instagram. And please share with me. I'm thinking maybe we could start a hashtag for your cooking, if you want to share cooking with me too. Because again, I'm always so inspired by what you're doing, and love to see what's happening. You guys give me so many great ideas. I think that would be a fun little thing to try. So let's try it out, see how it goes, see if it fits. In the meantime, I want to thank you for, if you're new, I want to thank you for joining me for the first time. It's a good time to start, since I think I'm going to be shifting the focus of the podcast a little bit over the next couple months. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for sticking with me and coming back through this very prolonged, dramatic pause, which is what I'm going to call it. Until next time, you can find show notes, links to everything we've talked about today on thehungriestknitter.com. Come hang out with us in the Ravelry group, which could use a little energy since I've been gone for so long. thank you for your patience and bearing with me. I hope you're excited for the new year and some new changes to the podcast. And until next time, stay hungry. Bye.
It is such a good night to kiss.